increased. Obviously, still not a huge amount of players. I mean, we're only a small amount of the population that it is. And, you know, there were, now today, obviously, you're dealing with the World Games, so you only have so many. But, yeah, there was quite a bit of anti-Semitism, to answer the original point, and, you know, if you read anything about Hank Greenberg, will tell you, it got bad for a while. He got used to it, and the best way that he could answer it was by being a great player and, you know, shutting those guys up with his bat, which he did.
Rob, can you talk about the inspiration for the book?
Inspiration for the book.
How you came up with the idea?
Well, yeah, I mean, part of it was that I wanted to write something about, you know, I'd written about the 20s. I wanted to go, you know, a little bit more modern, quote unquote, 1940s, and, you know, get some players involved who, you know, people actually were alive to have seen, and where some of whom were still alive. And then you know, I started to look into the war era and how it kind of, you know, played with the immediate, you know, post-war peacetime era. And there was so much interplay, and how much of it was so interesting, and the characterizations were so rich. Just seemed like a natural topic. Within the publishing industry, World War II and baseball, you know, are two traditional classics, you know, two great tastes that go great together. So that was definitely smiled upon by Little Brown, my publishing company, so that was part of it too, when it sells the books. But it just was such a natural, and, you know, every player, directly or indirectly during that time, was obviously touched by the war, as was all of America. And there were so many different stories and so many facets and shadings to their experiences. It just seemed like a natural. And plus the 46th season was so exciting and entertaining that, you know, once I started doing the research, it was, I couldn't stop. It was very easy to turn it into a book after that.
Any last questions before? I know Rob has agreed. I know many of you came early to get your upload. Got one for us? Hang on.
Oh, that's okay.
No problem.
I'll project. Okay.
Yeah, check it out.
Where did you get this great collection of photographs?
Good question. Well, these photographs are not obviously all the ones that are in the book. When they put them out and publish them in the book, you have to go through a lot of, you know, copyright laws and make sure everybody signs off. A lot of them came from the Hall of Fame. Some of them I just took off the internet, quite honestly. And I can use them in this format. Some of them I, you know, tried to get rights to use in the book and just couldn't for various reasons. But for the most part, the Hall of Fame has a huge collection of photographs dating back to the very, very first days of baseball's inception. And I spent several days in the kind of windowless warren up there in the middle of winter, snug inside while it was blizzarding outside, looking through photograph after photograph, really, you know, kind of probably 1,000 altogether, but kind of whittle them down. A lot of them are the ones you see here. This one all came from the Hall of Fame. And there were a few more that came from various private people who have collections in the various photo archives as well. But they charge a lot more than the Hall of Fame.
Did you have the opportunity to interview any of the guys
Yes.
who played before
Yeah,
this?
glad you asked. Yeah, there's still, I think I talked to 14 players who were still alive when I did the research, and since then, which is only 3 years ago, I guess now, or two and a half years, a handful have passed on. Bobby Dorr, who we talked about briefly, is still alive, and I talked to him in Oregon. He was, you know, very much with it. Stan Musial, at the time I was writing the book, was still alive, but as some of you probably know, he was in the grips of dementia. And that was the case with a lot of players who may have been alive, but did not have the ability to really remember anything in detail about the season. But the good news was, so much interest in this period, the golden age of baseball. Most players by this point have given some sort of oral history of their lives, or written memoirs, or been interviewed in some detail. There was plenty of research material to be had, even with players who I talked to. I found that it was easy to augment that with other stuff that they'd already talked about, which was great. And just we have, you know, I tracked down somebody who was there for that European Theater of Operations World Series, for example. And there's nothing beats, obviously, first-hand accounts of what it was like to be able to put that to work. So that was great. Unfortunately, our veterans are dying off at quite the rapid rate, so you know, it's tough to them while we still can. It's tough on you tonight who were there then. So thanks for staying alive.
Many of us saw the movie A League of Their Own. Were there any Jewish women players?
That's a good question. I know of two. There might have been more. I don't know the exact. Yeah, those records are pretty scanty today. But there were definitely two. And say that there were possibly two others, but it's not definitive. But, you know, there was a Midwestern setting, most of those were farm girls, there were a handful from the coast, but most people there who played that, most of the ladies were, from the Midwest, so, you know, by sheer numbers, there weren't that many, but there were a couple. It was a great league. I didn't really get into it in this book, mainly because the story's been told, and also because it just didn't really fit the narrative particularly well. I had to shoehorn it in, it just didn't seem like it, but it's a great story. If anybody hasn't seen the movie, which I doubt, it's definitely worth a rental.
Well, I know some of you came early to get a signed copy of the book from Rob, and I know as we go up to the reception at the Jolly Lodge, we'll have a chance to have additional opportunities to get the book. Absolutely, and ask questions. But if you're slipping out afterwards and you want a copy, Rob said he would stay around for just a moment before we walk up to the reception. But Rob, thank you so much for you and your family for all the support, and come ask Rob some questions. We'll let him step outside to the book signing, and we'll see you.